Welcome to Beyond the Hustle, where we do business differently. Less grind, more strategy, and a low lift revenue model that makes high cash months feel light as a feather. I'm Tristan Jean, your business mentor and social sales expert, and I have built a spacious, scalable business that locks in recurring revenue so I don't reset to zero at every month, without launching every 2 weeks, running on empty, or launching a low-ticket mass membership that saps the life out of me. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Here we don't just talk about making money. We talk about building a business that never resets at zero, where a few strategic offers sell out every time and sales flow 24/7 without you constantly showing up. If you're ready to get off the income roller coaster and finally create a business that pays you and gives you your life back, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, grab your coffee and your comfy couch blanket because you know I have mine, and let's chat, my friend. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about today's episode. So, how to overcome the fear of inconsistent income and create predictable revenue. So, if you've been here, if you've been on Instagram, if you've been around, you know that my biggest pet peeve, the thing I avoid the most, is inconsistent income. One high month, one dry month, panic mode, repeat, income roller coaster, whatever you want to call it. That is what we avoid at all costs here. Not at all costs. That's not true. We don't do anything at all costs. But you know what I mean. Okay. So this is important to address because this is actually the fear of inconsistent income is what keeps you stuck in inconsistent income. So if you've been struggling with it, with unpredictable sales, with the constant fear of starting each month at zero and trying to reach that goal, I have good news for you. It's fixable. Yay. And I know what it's like to feel trapped in that cycle, obsessively checking sales, pulling out your calculator on your phone to see how much do you still need to make if you make X amount of sales today, and feeling like every month is a make or break moment. There is a way out. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the exact steps to create predictable revenue so you can scale your business without the panic. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience with this challenge. As you know, for about 2 decades, I chased different online business models, jumping from one to the next every 2 weeks, hoping each one would finally work in those 2 weeks. But every time I started over, I had the same problem. And it was that I was so focused on quick wins that I never thought about building something sustainable. I have such a strong drive to achieve a goal when I set my mind to it that I don't care how long I have to work. I don't care if I'm only sleeping 3 hours a night. I don't care if I'm not eating all day or if I'm saying no to everything on the weekend, if I know that it's going to make me reach my goal. When I finally did start scaling to higher and higher months, I did it by hustling harder and harder and harder until I was hustling 60 hours a week, launching nonstop, making it to high cash months, no other way than pure grit and grinding. But here's the problem. As you know, because that's what we talk about here, when your income depends on how much effort you put in, it is not sustainable. So I had built a business that paid me well, but it cost me a lot too. It cost me my energy, my time. There was no freedom. But I think the worst part of it, and it was probably the only thing that made me think, okay, I have to take action, was that even after all of that work, my business still felt so fragile. Like it could all be gone tomorrow. If I just took my foot off the gas, it would completely disappear. And that feeling came instantly after the high of meeting a sales goal. Instantly. So I would be hustling, hustling, hustling. Maybe I would make my goal a week before the month ended. Maybe I would make my goal halfway through the month. Maybe I would make my goal on the last day. I did not celebrate that. I did not feel at ease. I would be like, yes, I did it. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do it next month? Not only how am I going to do it next month, how am I going to go bigger next month? It was that feeling of that instant crushing feeling of fear and pressure. And that's when I realized that feeling, no, I have to change this. I can't have this feeling every month. And to be honest, if I never had that feeling, I probably would still be hustling because I don't have a problem with working. I don't have a problem with sacrifice. No, I probably do. I'm probably too willing to sacrifice. But it was that feeling of my business feeling fragile and unstable, like it was built on quicksand. And that's when I knew I had to change everything. So I want to talk for a minute about why we're talking about the fear of inconsistent months, right? Because that fear is making you take actions that are actually causing your inconsistent months. Because in order to shift from inconsistent months, there are things that have to change in your business. And in order to change things in your business, sometimes you have to pull back. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, right? I feel like I want to say it's basic science. Like a slingshot, you have to pull back to let go, right? But is that physics? I don't know. So, and when you have this fear of inconsistent months, there is nothing scarier than slowing down, than pulling back, even if you know it's strategic. So, first we have to address that, right? Reframe what appears to be a slowdown or a shift as a good thing, as building momentum behind something that's going to compound your sales and compound your actions. So one of the shifts that we need to make to overcome this fear that we have now that we know why we have it is to stop relying on random sales. So most entrepreneurs, at least when we're starting, when we're trying to get to 10K, and sometimes even after we've gotten to 10K, rely on hope-based selling. So they put out an offer and they cross their fingers and hope for the best. And a lot of times it works out. A lot of times they get sales and they're excited. And then when sales slow down, what do? They panic launch and do it all over again. But hope is not a strategy. What you need is a revenue plan, a system that allows you to see your income before it happens so that you're not in a reactive mode, reacting to slow sales days. So doing this can actually help eliminate the fear of inconsistent months, because the first thing that's going to happen when you start to make a shift is that fear is going to come in. Okay, but if I don't launch, if I don't do this, if I don't create something new, my income is going to go down. It probably is for a period of time. Mine did. I had 3 $0 months while I was restructuring my business. And it was hard. There were times that were really scary. And I wanted to go back. I'm like, I could just create something and launch it and make this amount of money. But I had leaned in to this new way of operating my business. And I knew I had to stick to it. I knew I had to walk my walk. And I knew it was going to work. I just needed to detach from the timeline. So mapping out what you want your business to look like, mapping out what 6 months in your business would look like, a timeline, a reasonable timeline, to shift things and organize things with the goal of creating recurring revenue streams so that you aren't relying on new sales every month, on new leads. And strategically building out an offer flow that leads people naturally into your higher priced offers. So then you're keeping the same clients longer and they're paying you more. So once I realized this and I was able to map it out and see it, it really helps minimize the fear of inconsistent months because you see how it's fixable and you just have to reframe it from a dip to a strategic slowdown or a strategic pullback. Now, another thing that happens with entrepreneurs who struggle with inconsistency is your business depends on you constantly showing up to make sales. And I've talked about this before, but if your income is tied to your effort, you're going to feel trapped and you're going to feel burnt out. And not only that, but you're creating inside of your audience this idea that their success depends on you showing up. So they're only going to buy when you show up. So instead, you need sales systems that work for you 24/7. So you don't have to be on Instagram every day. So that eventually Instagram is just kind of like the cherry on top of this little sales machine that is always selling for you. So you need to automate your lead generation so you aren't always searching for new clients. You need to set up evergreen sales systems that are constantly selling for you. You need to be very strategic about your offer positioning so that clients move through your sales ecosystem naturally without you pushing a sale. Once you build these things into your business, then your income won't depend on launches or live selling or how much energy you have that day. This is what gives you those slow mornings that you want and those freed up weekends. Okay, and now build a business model that doesn't reset to zero. Most important thing ever. The biggest reason that people struggle with inconsistency is building a business model that resets at zero every single month. So now you're starting at zero and you want to get to 10K. And that can look huge starting at zero every month. And then I guarantee you, if you hit that 10K doing that, you're going to realize in this economic climate how little 10K will get you. And then you're going to want to scale to 20K or 30K or 50K. Now imagine starting at zero and trying to get to 50K. How do you think that's going to make you feel? How hard do you think that's going to make you work starting at zero to 50K? And I can tell you this, which is also a topic for another time, that 10K a month goal you have is going to be harder to reach than shooting for like a 25K month. 10K months are harder to sustain than higher months. Absolutely. But like I said, we'll talk about that another time. So what's keeping you starting over at zero every month are these one-off sales cycles instead of creating offers that build on each other. Offering low ticket memberships that require hundreds of people to stay afloat. And then you burn out constantly trying to fill spots instead of structuring your business for retention. So the way that we do this really is through one to few or one to many high ticket scalable programs. So what you're doing is stacking higher ticket sales each month. So through payment plans or rolling enrollments, your income is building on itself every month. And the longer you create these programs for, the better. Not to mention, when you're creating these little 90-day programs, it's really difficult to get any kind of measurable, consistent result in 90 days. With anything, really, if you think about it. The longer you do it, the better results you're going to get. Because the more your efforts compound, the more those reps show. So I would want you to have offers that are built for 6-month to 12-month enrollments. And then price them in a way that is sustainable. I don't talk a lot about pricing or industry standards because pricing is very personal. And it's based off of the value your dream client sees. So there are people who pay $200,000 for a group mastermind a year. And there are people who will not pay $2,000. But price your offers in a way that is sustainable for you, not just cash inductions. Price your offers in a way that is going to make you excited to keep working with that client for 6 to 12 months. Think about that. If you're going to work with someone for 12 months, how much should they be paying you? At the end of month 1, are you going to be like, oh my gosh, I just over-delivered so much. I can't believe I have to work with this person for another 11 months. And we're actually going to create less offers, but higher impact and higher value. So clients stay and they upgrade and they want to keep working with you and they re-sign. So these are the shifts that I made while I had a fear of inconsistent income that helped me reframe an income dip to a strategic pullback to create massive momentum. That's it for today's episode of Beyond the Hustle. If you are done with the income roller coaster and ready for a business that actually supports your life, hit subscribe and leave me a review so you don't miss what's next. Want to go deeper? Check the show notes for ways we can do that. And if today's episode hit home, send me a DM or share it on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'd love to hear what stood out to you. Until next time, friend, keep scaling, keep selling, and keep living life beyond the hustle.